we go into the trashy exploitation area of film by looking at two movies by Paul Nicholas. Who's Paul Nicholas? No one of any real importance. He only made 4 movies, 2 of them women in prisons films, but one of them happens to be a cult favorite of the women in prison genre. Chained Heat from 1983, starring Linda Blair, Sybil Danning, John Vernon, Tamara Dobson, and Stella Stevens. The plot for Chained Heat is about as generic as a woman in prison movie can get. Linda Blair plays a snobby rich girl who accidentally kills someone while drunk driving. And then pretty much the rest of the movie becomes about Miss Blair trying to survive a prison that's full of corruption, prostitution, and drug trafficking. Chained Heat is a classic example of exploitation schlock featuring gratuitous violence and sex, mostly lesbian-based, over-the-top but enjoyable overacting, and amateur camera work that includes a boom mic that drops down about 10 times throughout the film. Chained Heat is very silly, poorly written, and features just enough sex, nudity, and lesbianism to piss off an entire classroom of PC college kids. But it's still a lot of fun if you're into campy 80s movies. While the writing is very ridiculous, the story is actually pretty well paced, and a lot of scenes actually do have some decent direction behind them. And Linda Blair, for a role that was obviously done just to pay the bills, she gives a surprisingly powerful performance. With the exception of 2 scenes where she interacts with the prison's warden, played by John Vernon, I thought she was very consistent and very strong throughout the film. I read that she got a Razzie nomination for a performance, which I just think was undeserved, especially after seeing a scene where her character, who has just been raped, talks to another inmate and just confides, and this is a very strong scene in an otherwise cheesy movie that she really brought a lot of emotion and heart to. So overall, it's a poorly made film, not great, but it's still very enjoyable if you're into gritty, cheesy movies. But you gotta suspend a lot of disbelief. What do I mean? The criminal operations in this film's prison are so unrealistic you'd swear a high schooler wrote the script. Some good examples are the warden of this prison has a hot tub in his office, and his whole office, you could swear they used the set from a porn studio. And he has cameras all over to film himself fucking the inmates, so yeah, try explaining that to the prison board. And also, a female guard, played by Stella Stevens, works with a criminal on the outside, played by Henry Silva, to smuggle certain inmates out of the prison, and have them work as expensive escorts. Like I said, you gotta suspend a lot of disbelief, but it's still a fun film if you're into this kind of thing, so recommend it. The second women in prison movie by Paul Nicholas is the lesser known but arguably better exploitation film, The Naked Cage from 1986. The very next film by Paul Nicholas, the plot is very similar to Chained Heat. A young woman is sent to prison where she finds that the warden is running underground operations with the inmates and many of the guards are in on it as well. And she finds that the prison is full of drugs, violence, lesbianism, blah blah blah. However, the main difference between Chained Heat and The Naked Cage is that in Naked Cage, the main character, played by Sherry Shattuck, is an innocent woman who was wrongly convicted. Another woman who makes a living as a criminal teams up with Sherry's ex-boyfriend, and together they rob a bank she works at. And holding her at gunpoint, they force her to be their getaway driver. And after the getaway goes sour, the other woman lies and says that Sherry was in on it the whole time, and for that, she goes to prison. No evidence, just going off on the word of a lying career criminal. Kind of like someone who's convicted of rape with no physical evidence, and the police and the prosecution build everything on the mouth of someone who, if they really thought about it, could be an unstable, pathological liar. Personally, I think The Naked Cage is the better of the 2 movies. It's less cliched, and the characters are better written, and it actually does have some genuinely touching moments. While the cast is mostly overacting, you can tell everybody's having a fun time, henceforth their performances are fun. And did I mention this is a film by the Cannon Group? So we get regular Cannon film lady Angel Tompkins as the lesbian warden of this film's prison. And if I do say so, Angel, who was in her mid-40s at the time, is by far the hottest woman in the film and just brings the most sex appeal. And creepily enough, the warden in Chained Heat also had the most sex appeal over any of the inmates. Yes, the warden, played by the bald, fat John Vernon, had more sex appeal than any of the young women in Chained Heat. I'm not joking, I genuinely think that. Call me crazy, I guess I just like older people. Both wardens in these films are pretty awesome villains, and like Chained Heat, I recommend The Naked Cage. It is a pretty awesome women in prisons film, and I got these two tapes at my local video store just about a week before it closed. They were selling out their stock, and the guy who owned the video store said that back in the day, before things got too politically correct, he actually had a genre section in his store that was specifically for women in prison films. How times change. The videotapes on this closing week were going for $1 or less a piece, and I walked out of that store with $80 worth of videotapes. There may be something wrong with me.